Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey Podcast. My name is Art, and as we are heading into the Christmas season, I know there is one thing on the list of every boy and girl out there. They want a dragon for Christmas, right? Maybe, maybe not. But my guest today is an author of many books about dragons, including a new one. The one I have here is called Dawn of the Dragons, and it's by Mari Mancusi. She's also written for the Disney company. She's written some books set in the Frozen universe that are officially licensed by Disney, so they are fit into the plot line and everything. She's even written a alternate story of The Nightmare Before Christmas called Sally's Lament. The new series she's writing about dragons right now, there's the first one called New Dragon City, and then this one, Dawn of the Dragons, is a prequel to the story she wrote a few years ago, I think it was. We have a great conversation covering things like writing for Disney, writing about dragons, and also, the importance of getting kids to read. We cover all those topics and probably a few others as well as we explore her writing journey. I really enjoyed this conversation, as I do all my conversations, but this was great. Hearing from a writer with such an obvious love for story and imagination, and wanting to encourage kids to explore that is just fantastic. As I said, Christmas is coming up, and as a parent of kids, when my kids were younger, just wanted to devour books like a book dragon would, right? Or is it a bookworm? Yeah, that joke's not original with me, sorry. Anyway, I was always on the lookout for new books, and because you always do, you get those same recommendations over and over again, which are great. I mean, these books have stood the test of time, but what if your kid has read them so much that they have them memorized? Well, Mari has books she's written vibrant with storytelling, so really would recommend that. So stick around. After the interview, I'll come back on and wrap up a few things. But with that, let's go ahead and get to our interview with Mari Mancusi. All right, my guest today is author Mari Mancusi. She's a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author. She's written a ton of science fiction and fantasy books for kids, teens, and adults. And according to her bio here, also is an Emmy Award-winning former TV news producer. So she's done it all, it sounds like. And what I'm excited about as we're heading into the Christmas season here, she's written books for, especially for that middle grade reader, like 3rd to 8th grade, really hits the sweet spot there. As a parent of kids who, when they were younger anyway, they were voracious readers, couldn't keep books in their hands long enough. And so I'm always on the lookout to continue spreading the good news that there are more books being written for that age group. So, Mari, welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey Podcast.
Thank you for having me. And yes, I have to say, books make such good holiday gifts. I mean, they're not some kind of plastic toy that's going to be thrown away the next day or lost in the room, and they give a lot more enjoyment. So just in general, I always love giving books for gifts.
Same. I love giving them. I love getting them.
Yeah.
So it's the best. And some of my favorite gifts over the years have been books that have really just impacted my life in quite a good way. So definitely excited to have you on. So we're going to talk about dragons and your writing journey and some of the other things you've written as it goes beyond dragons. So I think there'll be something for everyone here today. But first of all, you want to just give us a quick just rundown of who you are and how did you get into writing?
Yeah. So as you mentioned before, I was in my former life a TV news producer, and so I was working in the investigative unit. We were doing like undercover work and scams and ripoffs, putting the bad guys on TV,
Mhm.
exposing them, that kind of thing, and it was a really rewarding job. However, as you might realize, TV news is a little bit of a downer sometimes.
Mhm.
And so, imagine being in a newsroom all day and hearing all of the horrible things that are going on in the world and having to cover those stories and being a writer on this kind of nonfiction. And so when I would get home, I'd be so exhausted, right? I would just be like, just down from all the stuff I had to, absorb during the day. And the
Mhm.
first thing I wanted to do either pick up a fantasy book and read it, or maybe sit down and write my own, because once you're writing fiction, you can give those stories a happy ending. The hero can save the day, and that's not always how it works in real life, sadly. And so it kind of was empowering to be able to come home and write my own stories. And I got into it, and I really loved writing fiction, and that's sort of what inspired me to try to become a published author.
Stories for me have always been kind of an escape. And uh, I noticed especially mysteries when life would get really just complicated. Something about that mystery novel would just kind of unravel and I think it's probably the problem solving that goes on in the story, especially in mysteries. But yeah, something satisfying about that helped me, just view the world in a little more organized way.
Yeah, I love reading mysteries. I am not a good writer of mysteries. My brain just doesn't work that way. I read the mysteries, I'm like, wow, who would have thought that was, like I'm always so
Yeah.
surprised as a detective, And so, but that's okay. Because, we all have our strengths and weaknesses when it comes to
Mhm.
writing, but I absolutely enjoy reading mysteries and going on that journey.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you have any favorite writers or books you love to recommend?
For mysteries, I love Lucy Foley, who did the guest
Hmm.
list and some of the other
Yeah.
ones. I think she's really a great British writer. But I read a lot of fantasy as well. I try to delve into everything. I just read the big hot alchemized book, which is the one that stemmed from fan fiction from Harry Potter, and then it
Oh,
turned into this like big epic, very very dark fantasy, and I just absorbed the whole thing. It was like 1,000 something pages, and I just like devoured it. So I like, dark fantasy, and then I like, mysteries, and I like I don't read a lot of realistic books, but sometimes,
mhm.
but more they'd probably be mysteries if they were realistic, instead of just like romantic comedies kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the same way. A lot of the books that win all the literary awards, that are just like fiction. I'm
Yeah.
like, good for you, but that's not really my cup of tea. Every once in a while, though, I'll come across one that's really just outstanding. But yeah, there's something about like an interesting twist to it, or if it's a book about books or readers, that's gonna probably hook me. But I like a little genre in my reading, whether it's mystery or science fiction or fantasy. I'm learning to find the kind of fantasy I like. The big thick fantasy series like Game of Thrones, that's not really appealing to me. uh I, I might be like the only one, but uh, but I have found a great enjoyment in like urban fantasy and cozy fantasy is
Hmm.
kind of a new genre that's been coming up.
Yeah.
That's been really nice.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
enjoyed
There's a
that.
fantasy these days for everyone, which is really nice, whether it's the romantasy, where there's a whole dash of romance in it,
Hmm.
or urban fantasy, or the traditional fantasy. Like, and I am a big fan of the Game of Thrones series. I like those big doorstopper books.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you think he'll ever finish the series? I know it's
No.
been no.
I was looking at my time hop, and it was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, I was at a convention, a fantasy convention in DC called Capclave, and I wrote excitedly that he was there as the guest and that he read a chapter from Winds of Winter. And he was like, oh, I hope he's going home and finishing. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that was
Yeah.
a really long time ago. I don't think it's going to happen. But I enjoyed what we had, and I would love more content, even if it's not polished and finished. Like, just put it out there. Let us absorb it. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah. Now I do enjoy Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
Um, as a fantasy lover, I'm sure you've read them.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can't be a fantasy reader if you don't. Uh, and that maybe is why I don't like the others, is that he just did it so well. It's like, okay, you know, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
I guess walk us through your first book. How did you get published with that first time?
Yeah, it was many, many years ago, 20 years ago now. And
Hmm.
so things were a lot different than they are now. Obviously, there
Hmm.
was no self-publishing, or if there was, it was like people handing out a CD with their book on it. There was no Kindle. It's hard to believe now, thinking back, only 20 years ago, there was no e-publishing at all. So traditional publishing was the only way to go. And so you had to do it the old-fashioned way of like stuffing your manuscript in a self-addressed stamped envelope. I feel like when we traipsed to school, 2 feet in the snow, both ways.
Hmm.
Um, but that's how we did it. And, I thought when I wanted to write a book, I'm like, I just want to write a book and get it published. And so I thought, well, what kind of book do I want to write? And I looked in the big writer's market book they had back then. It was like this thick, and it had all the publishers and what they publish and how often they publish and all of that stuff you could
Hmm.
find online now. And I looked up this company called Harlequin. And I thought, oh, well, they publish a lot of books. Surely I can write a romance. That should be easy. And I
Hmm.
tried my hand at writing a romance, even though I had never been a romance reader. I read a bunch of books and I thought, oh, I can do this. I could not do this. It is much harder than you think. And if you don't respect the genre, you don't know the genre, people are going to see you coming a mile away. This is not
Right.
some easy shortcut into publishing. And so I got a lot of rejections, which I should have, because the book wasn't very good. And so I kind of took a step back and I said, you know what? Clearly I'm trying to write something that I think the market would want. But this isn't enjoyable to me. I want to write something that I would like to read and just see what happens, just kind of free myself up. And I thought, well, the two things I'm interested in is I really like fantasy, as you know, and I really like, chick lit, which had been coming out around that time. It was really big around that time. These kind of funny, just girl about town
Hmm.
books. And I thought, what if we combined fantasy with chick lit? And so I wrote the first ever chick lit time travel. And so it was called A Connecticut Fashionista in King Arthur's Court. And it took a 21st century fashion editor and brought her back to the days of King Arthur. And she had to relive the legend while falling in love with Lancelot. And it was just snarky and funny and irreverent, and yet pulled in all of my love of Arthurian legend to the story. And it was very different. And I think that's what got people's attention, editors' attention, is like that we haven't seen this before. And you can clearly feel that the author loves what she's talking about. And so that was my first published book. And I really believe it's because I didn't try to write for what they would want. I've tried to write what I would want, what I'd want to read. And that reflected in the story. So for new writers who are trying to do stuff, it's so easy to just be like, oh, well, this is popular. This is popular. I should try to write this, but it's going to come across in your writing if you're not sincere with it.
Hmm. I just had a guest on, I think just my last episode it was, that talked about that to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader, but also you got to write what you love. Otherwise, people will know like you're phoning it in, or just trying to, you know, it's like doing a research project that you don't care about, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and imagine if it does get successful. Like you write a vampire book and you hate vampires, but you're like, oh, it's for the market, like during the Twilight
Yeah.
time or whatever. And then you're stuck writing like all these vampire books because they're successful and you can't stand them. Like there are a lot easier ways to make money than to write books. And so
Yeah.
if you're not enjoying what you're writing about, it is not going to be fun for you. So yeah, write what you love is definitely good advice.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to decide what order to talk about these in, but speaking of writing what you love, you've written for Disney.
Mhm.
Um, One, it looks like a novel, kind of a spin-off of Nightmare Before Christmas, called Sally's Lament.
Mhm.
What's that one about?
So it's actually a twisted tale, which means that basically it's a series of 18 books that Disney has put out with different authors. And the idea in these stories is to get a what if question and then kind of twist the story into something new using the same characters and worlds that we already know and love. So in this one, they gave me the question, what if Sally discovered Christmas Town instead of Jack? How would that change the Nightmare Before Christmas story? Turns out quite a bit. And as you can imagine, Sally's not going to want to take over the holiday like Jack did and make it her own. She's going to want to try to help the people of Christmas Town. And so she goes in and she starts to realize that even though everything seems nice and jolly and happy in Christmas Town, there's sort of this dark underbelly. You were talking about cozy fantasy. People have compared this to like a cozy horror, so you're having all the trimmings of Christmas and Jack and Sally drinking hot chocolate and trying to ice skate and all of that. But this like creepy, who's on the naughty and nice list, and what does it really mean to be naughty or nice? And is there some authority figure that's kind of taking it a little bit too far on the whole, you've got to be nice or else? And so that was sort of how I played with that story. But it was really fun. It's like writing official fan fiction, and it's all authorized. For that one, it's a dual license, so Disney had to approve it, and the Tim Burton team had to approve it. So it all had to be, buttoned up before it could get out. So people are sometimes like, oh, do you pay Disney? Like, how do you get away with writing for Disney? Or do you pay Disney to, it's like, no, they pay me, but they have control over the stories. They come to me and say, we need a book about X. And then I go ahead and we work on it together.
Yeah. Nightmare Before Christmas was one of my, and it still is one of my favorite films. It's just so good and rich in, I think, storytelling potential. It's amazing we've never had a sequel or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that just shows what a perfect little story that movie was. Well, and according to your website, it says you're a Disney super fan. So things like that must have been like a dream job for you.
Yeah, it really was. I got started because I had sold a book to Disney Hyperion. They do a regular publishing line, like they do everything. And so they do books like Percy Jackson, for example. And so I wrote a book called The Camelot Code for them, and I started doing books for them. And my editor was like, well, we know you're a big Disney fan. Like, how many times have you cosplayed Elsa and thrown it up on Facebook? Sometimes you just got to let your freak flag fly and see what happens, especially if you want to get into IP writing. And so she's like, would you like to audition for a Disney, book? And I was like, yes. And so they gave me an audition where I wrote a couple sample chapters and a synopsis, like an outline of the story, and nothing came of it. And I thought, oh, I lost my chance. I tried, I shot my shot, but it didn't work out. And then about a year later, they came back to me and they were like, hey, we have a Frozen book that we need written. And do you have the time to do it? And I was like, well, no, but yes.
Great.
And so they said it's about Elsa and Anna's parents and their story about falling in love when they were teens. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like the worst book ever, because Frozen 2 hadn't come out yet. So all we knew about Elsa and Anna's parents were that they like locked her in her room and then died. And so I was like, well, that sounds like awful. And then they sent me the script to Frozen 2, and I read that and I realized they expanded the lore on the parents so much in the second story that this would be a really interesting book. And so I got to write this very tragic love story because, of course, we know the ending of Elsa and Anna's parents, and made everyone cry. And that was sort of my first Disney book.
I'm going to say great, but good for you.
I made everyone sob. And it was funny because they did the audiobook and they had Alfred Molina and Evan Rachel Wood, who voiced the characters in the movie, do the audiobook. And so Evan is, oh my gosh, Evan, she's such a great actress, and she just made me bawl. I'm like, I wrote this. How am I crying? They did such a good job on it. Yeah.
And Alfred Molina, he's such a great actor.
Is.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite, going back to mysteries real quick, one of my favorite mystery series is Three Pines by Louise Penny. And they tried to do, I guess, a TV show of it. Maybe it was Canadian. But Alfred Molina played the main character, and it was so good. He was so good. And I'm sad that I guess there won't be a second season. So that was too bad.
All the great shows get canceled.
That's right. Yes, exactly. My daughter loved Frozen. I mean, she was a young girl when the first film came out, and like many a young girl, it she loved it. We heard "Let It Go" so many times in the house, and I think it's neat that they actually worked with you to make sure it would connect well with the film, and you got to read the script beforehand.
Yeah.
Is that before the movie came out? So
Yeah, and my daughter, who was, I think, 9 at the time, was begging me. And I was like, I can't tell you. Like, I'll get fired. You'll go tell some kid at school, tell their parents, they'll put it on Twitter. Like,
yeah.
I'll be doomed. And so, but she was very upset that mommy got to read the script and knew what was happening before she did.
I imagine it's like, I love the Marvel movies, and the actors always joke about, I can't give spoilers, or Disney's going to get me, kind of thing. And
Yep.
I always wonder if they're only sort of
Sign the
joking.
contracts in blood, right?
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it sounds like you've had a positive experience with that, though, and kind of a dream come true for a fan, for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely love doing it. And the editors are so great. I mean, they are Disney fans too. Everyone that works on the project clearly loves the source material. And that makes it's not just a job for them. Like, they really are into it too. So that makes it so much fun. Yeah, my only complaint is that I can't talk about things. So I have a book I'm working on right now, and I can't tell you what it is, or I'd have to kill you. And so I have to be very boring sometimes with future projects. But yeah, it's worth it when they do come out.
So, here, I think is a great example that you are, in a sense, writing for the market. You've been hired to write about this subject, but it's a natural fit for you because, hey, this is something I love.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Disney's very good at trying to match the authors with the stories that they love or the franchises they love. Sometimes they'll be like, we have these two. Like, does one of them interest you more than the other? And so sometimes we can be like, you know what, this one isn't really my cup of tea, or I don't feel comfortable enough with the franchise, or not knowledgeable enough. I'd rather do this one or something. So they do try to make sure they are who the writer is a fan of the thing.
Right. Yeah. I've read a lot of Star Wars novels, and my boys have as well. And I know there's been a few times where some pretty big name science fiction writers have written for Star Wars novels. And that's always kind of fun. It's like, oh, we got you're a fan there, I see.
Yeah, and Star Wars can be a very toxic fandom, so it's very daunting. I don't know if I would want to write a Star Wars book just for the sense of, you're really putting yourself out there to the internet, and saying, judge me, or and because there's so much different, directions a Star Wars book could go, as extended universe, as Disney universes, OG, and so those people have a lot of courage to take on those projects.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something like my boys and I especially like Star Wars, and that's something we've noticed and are really disappointed at. It's just how toxic that fandom can be, and if it's not done exactly the way they want it or think it should be done, then it's garbage, and you're a garbage person for liking it,
fandom has such a sense of entitlement, unfortunately, at times.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. You can't blame them because, maybe they love the thing so much, they want to see in a particular vision. But also a lot of it can be stemmed from even things, like racism and misogyny and stuff like that. It kind of reveals also an ugly side of our culture, unfortunately. We've gotten to the point where we just ignore what they're saying, and we enjoy what we like. And and that's a good way, because I like to tell my kids, because I'm a really old man here, and I'm like, back in my day, we only had the 3 Star Wars films, and and that was it, and we liked it. You guys are spoiled today.
Yeah. With a franchise that big, you're not going to like everything in it. And,
right.
It's not all designed for you. And so I think the best way to do it is to pick and choose what appeals to you, where you want to see this go, and follow that, and just kind of ignore the noise on the rest. It's okay.
Right. So, you've actually written 3 Frozen books.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then some of them are, looks like it follows Elsa and Anna for at least a couple of them?
Yeah, so
Or
the Polar Nights, so Dangerous Secrets was about Elsa and Anna's parents.
Mhm.
Polar Nights was a post-Frozen 2 book, so it's kind of a spooky adventure about a Norwegian monster of legend that threatens Arendelle, and the Elsa and Anna have to stop it. So it takes place after Frozen 2.
Mhm.
The third one, All Is Found, was to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Frozen, and that was actually an anthology. And so I was the author editor on it, and I contributed a story. And so we had 10 authors come in and write stories from all sorts of edges of the Frozen verse. So we have when they were young, we have after Frozen 2, we have between the two movies, we have side character stories. And so we were really able to pull a whole bunch of things together for that anthology. So that was a fun one to work on.
Now, it's probably because I'm a big goofy dad, but my favorite character is oh, I've just blanked on his name now. The snowman.
Olaf, Sven?
Olaf.
Olaf,
Yes.
yes.
Olaf. Yeah.
Love
He's
Olaf.
yeah. Yeah.
He's
He's a
really
favorite.
fun to write. We had to, when we wrote Polar Nights, we had a lot of Olaf. And one of the directions they gave us was basically Olaf is just like a child full of childish wonder and adventure. So he wouldn't be sarcastic on purpose. Like, he
Mhm.
just sees everything like bright and shiny and new because he's new. And so that's kind of how we had to write him.
I just love it's like he's excited about everything, you know?
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, this is great.
Yep.
Yeah, love it. All right. Well, let's not bury the lead anymore. Let's talk about dragons.
All right.
You've a book, New Dragon City, I believe is the one I was sent. What's happening in this series? I think are there just two books in it right now?
There's two books right now with a third one to come. So New Dragon City was the first to be released, and it drops you right down in the middle of a dragon apocalypse. I kind of shorthand it to it's like How to Train Your Dragon, but in the dragon apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Where a boy is in this world where dragons have just devastated it, and mankind is barely holding on. And he ends up rescuing a baby dragon from a trap against everything he knows he should do. And the two of them form a bond, and they start to realize that the two species are more alike than they think. The idea that humans think dragons are the monsters because they have destroyed their world and killed so many people and all of that. And yet dragons are very confused about what humans are doing because dragons are just doing dragon things. They've come back. They're hunting for food, burning stuff down, just typical dragon day, and suddenly people are shooting them out of the skies and trying to kill them. And so the two of them start to realize that perhaps, if they could just figure out a way to get along, then we could have a more peaceful world. And, his father is a prepper. He is a, very angry man who is very against dragons and will never move to the other side. And his mother has joined this animal rights group for dragons, basically this group of scientists living up in Columbia University. It all takes place in New York City. And, they're trying to, befriend dragons and figure out more about them and how they, think and act and finding ways to peace. So he's sort of torn between his two parents as he's, befriending this dragon and figuring things out for himself.
Mm-hmm.
The second story, Dawn of the Dragons, is the one that just came out, and it's actually a prequel. So that takes place 5 years earlier. And the reason I wrote the prequel is because when I started going out and talking about New Dragon City, I got so many questions about how did the dragon apocalypse happen? Where did these dragons come from? Because we just kind of drop you in. And as you know, even like in a small disaster, like a hurricane or flood, when communication is wiped out, suddenly, no one has any information about what's going on. And so these people are, they know it happened, but they don't know exactly why because everything went dark really quickly. And so bringing it back 5 years, showing how the dragons came, what was the misunderstanding between dragons and humans that sparked this whole war. And it gave me a great opportunity to play with what our current society would be like if we did have something fantastical come like dragons. Like what viral videos would we see? Would people be in denial and saying it's fake news and AI when they start popping up? Would they go viral? Would they have dragon fans who are following these sightings about, in this sort of cult-like way? And, how do you deal with this? Is the government going to try to cover it up, or are they going to let everyone know there's dragons coming? And so I really got to play with our society with that one and what it would be like were dragons to come to the world.
Right. Now, would you recommend they read them in chronological order or publication order, or does it
So
matter?
It sort of depends on the reader. Some readers really like chronological order, and so they want to start at the top of the story and just see it how it happens as it goes. And so then in that case, I would suggest reading Dawn of the Dragons first. However, some people like to read in publication order, where you're just dropped down in the middle and then you have those questions my original readers had, and then they can go back. So they're meant to be read in either order. There's callbacks and Easter eggs for both. So, you would be able to see things either way you read them and recognize. So it's not like they're completely separate stories. The hero Noah in New Dragon City is 12, and you back it up, he's only 7. He's the kid with the prepper dad in town that everyone bullies because he's walking into school being like, there's dragons or UFOs or whatever the, conspiracy theory of the day is.
Right.
And we have Lucas, his next door neighbor, who's kind of taking him under his wing and be like, let's not talk about dragons now, Noah. And then when Noah and his family disappear into a bunker to hide out from these supposed dragons, Lucas is left with all these questions like, is that real? Like, is this time the guy is right? And so he has to start investigating and figuring out if what's really going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it sounds like you've had some very good response from schools and teachers and things about these books and how the kids have enjoyed them.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to get on 2 big state reading lists. So, the states of Texas and Florida, they pick like 20 books a year out of like 1,000. And they use them in their classrooms. And so the kids can and then at the end of the year, they actually get to vote on their favorite book. So in Florida, I actually won. So that was really exciting. The kids picked New Dragon City as their favorite book of the year. So I got to give a big speech last week in Florida in front of like 400 librarians, which was very daunting.
Yeah.
But awesome at the same time. And so I've been really fortunate that they've brought the books into schools and used them, because they're the kind of books that they do teach a lesson, mostly about like empathy and kindness and understanding and seeking the truth, especially with Dawn of the Dragons, the idea that like, we want to face things with facts, not fear. And it's so easy to get just carried away with what you see online without like, having media literacy and trying to figure out what's really going on. And then the idea that, this book ends in a dragon apocalypse. So how do you make it a happy ending, right? But the idea that sometimes you do the right thing in this overwhelming big world and bad things still happen. But that doesn't mean it wasn't important for you to do the right thing. And sometimes doing the right thing locally in your own community can have ripple effects that you have no idea could happen. And so I wanted to pull these kind of lessons into the stories, but also make it a very exciting, action-packed dragon adventure, and that the kids are going to just be drawn into. I actually wrote New Dragon City during the pandemic, and my daughter was stuck at home. And so, she was very bored and very depressed and all of that, like we all were back then.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, you remember. And I was like, well, I have a new book that I'm writing. Would you like to hear a chapter? And she was kind of like, oh yeah, whatever, And so I read her the first chapter. I take what I can get. I mean,
right.
She was in 4th grade. And the next day she came down and she was like, well, where's the next chapter? And so I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. So I had to write this book so fast because every day she wanted a new chapter for me to read to her. And I think that's why the book connected so well with its audience, is because I had my target reader sitting next to me and she wasn't going to accept a boring chapter. And like, it would have been so devastating if like, she's like, never mind, I'm not interested in the rest of the story,
Yeah.
Kind of like that 1,001 Nights where you're like, here we have to read a story or tell a story a day or you die. That's sort of how I felt.
Yeah.
But we made it through the whole story. And she still says to this day, she's a big high schooler now, she says that it was one of her favorite moments of the pandemic, this time of reading together. So it just shows you the magic of books,
Yeah, and reading aloud is a topic I'm very passionate about. I read aloud to my kids. I think that helped in so much for them in a lot of ways. Plus, it gave us, time together as just parent and child. And so, yeah, I read them the Harry Potter series. I read them Lord of the Rings. So I know I read the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's kind of where tastes were running, and I read some of the children's classics too, and it was fun because reading, well, both in Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, there are parts where I can't read without tearing up.
Yeah.
And especially in like Lord of the Rings, my kids are like, "Dad, are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine. We're taking a break."
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. But even that's good. I think for kids to see their parents expressing emotions and things like that. I think that's can be healthy. So
Absolutely.
I love reading aloud. I don't get to do it as often anymore.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter's in high school. And my two boys are in their 20s now and off on their own. So, I'll just patiently wait for some grandkids to come along, I
Yeah.
guess.
Next generation of reading.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, then my wife, she used to be a librarian, and now she's actually a middle school English and reading teacher. So I'm gonna give her these books and see if your kids like it, because she's we went out of town a couple months ago, and we like to go to bookstores and things, and she was just looking for, middle grade books, anything she could find that her kids might like to read, because I don't this is probably just a nationwide problem, is getting kids to read. It's just it seemed like a struggle, and she even found a book. I don't even know what it's called, but it was written by LeBron James, or it was about his life. And so she got it. She's like, I've got boys who will read this just because it's about LeBron James.
Yeah, yeah. And there
Yeah.
aren't a lot of books for boys in that age group, unfortunately. And then even fewer when you get into the teen books. They're
Mm.
all romance and such. And so it's a shame. And that's one of the reasons my editor is a boy mom, and she finds it very important. And I find it important too. Even though I'm a girl mom, I see, like we need books with empathy and kindness, but also action and adventure, like that will appeal to boys,
Mhm.
because, they are the lonely generation right now. And we don't want to lose them during this point because they can't find anything that appeals to them.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I think getting them to read can help them eventually learn to read things that maybe aren't necessarily their taste, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But it expands their ability to read other things too. That all right, well, this book doesn't have dragons, and it might have kissing in it. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I recognize it's a good story.
Mhm.
I remember my oldest. He was such an advanced reader. I want to say he was about 13 or 14, and he read Little Women, which is not your typical book a teenage boy would read, but he was such a strong reader. If you've read it or familiar with the story, it's about these four sisters, and I guess minor spoiler alerts. There's one of the sisters dies in the book, and I knew when he got to that part, because he like shuts the book, puts it aside, and just sits there, and I could tell his eyes were a little misty, and I'm like, oh, I know what you just read.
Yeah.
But yeah, but he enjoyed that. Maybe not the book to hand a young boy for their first read, It's
Mhm.
like, hey, I want action adventure. I want this or that. But yeah, just developing that love of reading. And if you have to do it with dragons, I mean, hey, what better
Yeah.
what better plot device, right?
And one of the things that we need to work on with publishing is to make the covers look older. A lot of the middle grade covers are very
Hmm.
cutesy and young. And I've heard this from librarians and teachers frustrated because they can't, even if it was a book that the boy would absolutely love if he picked up and read, the eighth grade boy is not going to, pick up this book because it looks like a little kid's book or it looks cutesy.
Hmm.
And so we did a really, when we did like, well, for the YouTube, you can see this, New Dragon City,
Hmm.
like we wanted it to be cool, like iconic, the dragon on the top of the Empire State Building. This is not a cutesy dragon. Like it's pretty, it doesn't look mean, but like it
Hmm.
looks cool with the
Yeah.
ruined cityscape behind it. And so that was very important for us with the series, is to make it, look cool and older. So even up to eighth grade or higher, you wouldn't be embarrassed to be reading it in the classroom.
Right. Yeah. Because as an adult, you think, well, who cares? But that's big for a kid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know myself and others, it wouldn't matter what I was reading. I would get teased for just reading, like, yeah. And if you can get over that, there's a whole other battle of, do I want to be seen reading this?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that's one thing I love about these books that you have is the cover art is another aspect that is just, I mean, almost breathtaking. I know you've got Dawn of the Dragons, and actually that's the one I have. I think I actually
Yes.
see it up here. Um, yeah, and that's, is that like the Golden Gate Bridge or something?
It's
That's what it looks
not,
like.
but everyone thinks it is. It's actually a bridge in upstate New York where it takes place.
Okay.
But I was just like, everyone thinks it is. I don't know. It's iconic.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
I guess the Golden Gate Bridge would be bigger. So
yeah.
now that I think about it, but yeah, that's it's great. I love good cover art. So
Yeah, I'm
uh,
looking forward to seeing the cover for the third book in the series. I've seen it like a rough sketch of like what it's going to look like, and it's going to have, it's called War of the Wings, the third book. And
mhm.
so it has two dragons in flight, like looking like they're going to be attacking
Mm,
one another. It's pretty cool. So can't wait to see the
excellent.
finished version.
Yeah. Now, will that third one be like advancing the story, or is it?
Yeah, so that'll be a
Mhm.
sequel. So
Okay.
it will take Noah and Asha from New Dragon City, and they're going to have another adventure with Lucas and Cinder and Flair from Dawn of the Dragons. But Noah will be the main point of view character because Lucas will now be 17 because it's,
Hmm.
6 years later from his story.
Hmm.
And so we didn't want a 16-year-old to have a point of view in a middle grade book. It's kind of awkward. And so
Right.
we have the 12, Noah will be 13. And so he will narrate most of the story. And then Maya, who's in New Dragon City, will come in as a character as well.
Hmm.
So yes. And of course, the dragon point of view, which is the most fun to write.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Now, is this planning to be a trilogy or a series, or just kind of open
Right now
ended?
it's three books. I think I could end it in three books. But
Hmm.
like with anything else, if the series continues to do well, there's always room for one more, as the Haunted Mansion says, to
Yeah.
quote Disney.
Yeah.
Like so we'll see. I'm glad to have had three books in this world. I love this world. And so, we'll see if the audience, it can be harder to push a series beyond that number of books, especially with middle grade, because
Hmm.
kids do age out of things.
Hmm.
But there's another Dragon City called Wings of Fire for kids that there's like 17 books, I think, or 18 books. So you never know.
Hmm. Right. Right. You never know. And I know adults who love reading middle grade and teen, YA books. And I don't know if it is so much, but I know when I was even younger, like a young adult, YA books were kind of like people viewed it as kind of less than. That's not real literature. That's just a YA book. It's like, hold on,
Right.
let's check our prejudice here,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's yeah, this is good. This is good storytelling. This is enjoyable.
A lot of it's just marketing too. You
Yeah.
think about like Ender's Game, for example, if you want to go sci-fi.
Hmm.
Like that first book, he was just a kid, but it was marketed as an adult book. And so then it was kind of like, oh, maybe it is a kid's book. Like you don't know where it's going to
Hmm.
be shelved in a bookstore. And I think that just because you shelve a book in a bookstore in a certain section, people just assume that's the audience, but it really can be read by anyone who's interested in the subject matter.
Right. When you know, I was probably in my early 20s when I first read, Harry Potter. Um, Conceivably, it's that's a young adult children's book series, but
Mhm.
man, it was so fun.
Yeah.
It was just really fun to read. And yeah, that got me over any kind of snobbery, I guess, really, if like, oh, I'm not going to read that. Now at this point in my life, I'm just like, just tell me a good story. I don't,
Mhm.
I'll enjoy it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for just this discussion today. Just real quick, tell us a bit about your website where we can find you online and order books and things like that, and all the goodies you have on your website.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website that's just my name, which is marimancusi.com. And I also have a dedicated website to the New Dragon City series. So if your kids or you read the book and you want some extras, we have videos, deleted scenes, quizzes like which dragon are you, kind of BuzzFeed style.
Mm-hmm.
And then activities they can do where they can design their own dragon. There's a lot of resources for educators as well. School visit information. I do a lot of author visits at schools. And so if you
Mm-hmm.
really want to do a deep dive, it's newdragoncity.com. And that's a fun one to expand on the series. And then, of course, I'm on all the social medias, Instagram at Mari Mancusi, TikTok, Mari Mancusi 8, like the number 8.
Mm-hmm.
That and Instagram and TikTok, I do a lot of Disney stuff. So if you're interested in the Disney part of my work, that's where you'll find all the videos for that. And as far
Right.
as getting the books, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, for the Disney books, probably Target or Walmart as well. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Looks someone who likes to cosplay probably has a pretty fun social media.
Oh,
You can
yes.
imagine. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today, Mary, and best of luck going forward.
Sorry.
And yeah, these books I think will make great Christmas presents, everyone. So
Absolutely. Books make good gifts.
that's right. That's right. All right. Well, take care and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks again for watching and or listening, if that's the case. Again, I will make sure to leave a link in the show notes to her website and to her dragon website as well. Really a lot of fun just to play around on there. And for those of you who might be teachers or even homeschool moms, there's a lot of good resources there for teachers. And also, she does Zoom visits to school as well as in-person visits. You can find out about that information on her website. As someone who's married to a middle school teacher, I know she is always looking for books to give to kids to read, just anything to get them to read. So these books are good. They teach some valuable lessons. With that, I'm really looking forward to the Christmas season. I hope you all will get a chance to get a new book and some time to read it in. I know December can be crazy, believe me. But so thanks again for giving your time today. There are links in the show notes if you want to help out the podcast in a financial way. It's always appreciated, but never expected. But thank you for that. And I think with that, I will go ahead and wrap up this season of the Bookshelf Odyssey. We'll start again here in a couple months. And until then, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. And I hope Santa brings you plenty to read this Christmas. So until next time, happy reading. Take care.